What's up, everybody? Welcome into the Week 8 edition of Game Theory Thursday. I'm your host, Ben Hostler, joined by Bales and Sam this week. I just realized I have your name tag switched on OBS, so Sam is going to play the part of Bales, and Bales will play the part of Sam this week if you're watching this on YouTube. But if you're listening, it will make no difference because you obviously know their voices. Thank you guys for tuning in. Thanks for all the love on YouTube you've been giving us recently. We really appreciate it. If you're watching this, be sure to give us a thumbs up, and you can subscribe to get notifications whenever we post a video. You can also check out dfskarma.com. I know Bales has articles up already for Week 8. Sam writes an ownership article every week. My articles come out on Friday as well. So I have lots of free content for you, and you can pick up a package as well for as little as $15. We're also approaching NBA season, even though it's an NFL podcast. It looks like it's going to be the last week of December, which is awesome. But we're going to get right into things. We're going to stick to our usual format. We're going to talk about the best games of the weekend, and then we'll talk about some positional plays before we head out. First game we're going to talk about is the Niners and Seahawks over under of 54. I think there's going to be a lot of ownership in this game and a lot of attention just on this game, given how bad the Seahawks defense has been. They're forced into shootouts every week, and they've been passing the ball so much more that it really turns into fantasy-friendly contests. So, Sam, I'm going to start with you. The only injury news that we have here is all these running backs hurt for Seattle. If there was this weird situation where all three of them were out, DJ Dallas would be bumped up our rankings, not necessarily saying he would become an instant cash play, but that is something to keep an eye on as we head into the weekend. And then I think it's just a great game. So, Sam, I'm going to start with you. I know there is a lot of projected ownership on Jimmy Garoppolo right now, so you can talk about if you're going to play him in cash. And then obviously it's the Game Theory podcast, so just tell me how you're breaking down the game in general.
Yeah, I mean, Jimmy, I don't know. We kind of touched on it pre-pod before he came on here. We're kind of joking about it. It's like he has these really good games, but, in cash, it's normally something, at least I view, as, trying to be a little bit on the safer side. Like you want the upside, but you just don't want a guy who's going to torch your lineup. No quarterback is really that insanely owned ever in cash. I think Kyler last week burned me, but I don't know. Jimmy, the Seahawks defense is so bad. Obviously, everyone knows that, but now Debo's out, Ayuk is good, and Kittle's I just don't know, even with the savings, if I'm willing to risk it on Jimmy. I don't think he's a terrible play, but I think for cash, I'd much rather pay up. We've talked about this before. The Seahawks, everyone knows Russ is the best quarterback in the league. I think this week, you're kind of splitting hairs when you're talking about DK Metcalf and Lockett. Both are basically the entire passing offense with Russ. I think this week I definitely prefer Lockett just because based on matchup. I know he just had that enormous Sunday night game, and that'll get ownership up, but it doesn't really matter. I honestly think he's still too cheap. And, with regards to the running situation, yeah, assuming Carson's out, Carlos Hyde, I don't know. I think he's a fine-ish play. No matter how banged up they are, the 49ers run D is still pretty decent per DVOA, and they do get a lot. They do get a decent pass rush still. So I definitely prefer the passing side of it. I think on the bring back, if I was going to stack this game, which I think a lot of people will, I'd be fine honestly just running it back with Kittle. He's such an imperative part of this offense. And then, like I mentioned, Brandon Ayuk is good, but I also don't mind. And I'm interested on Bales' take on this because I love when I give him my cheap guys, but Kendrick Bourne, Deebo Samuel out. Kendrick Bourne could easily get 4 catches for 50 yards and easily pay off that value. So
yeah, in cash, I'm not gonna really go Kendrick Bourne. I don't like Jimmy Garoppolo very much. If we're gonna be honest, you're not gonna convince me really that that's the top cash play even at 5,400 against Seattle. The floor is just too low for me. I don't love it. I'm not going to try to talk you off of it. And the same is more or less there for Kendrick Bourne. I do like him in tournaments. I have no problems with it. But if I'm playing cash, it's going to be Brandon Ayuk. He's legitimately good. He's electric with the ball in his hands, and they're going to be working him into the game plan. I have no issues with George Kittle. I'm not going to go there in cash because of Darren Waller, obviously. I mean, you're just gonna take your guess on DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett. It is what it is. Last week, we guessed wrong. I had a lot of DK Metcalf. I had very little Tyler Lockett. It really burned me come Sunday night. The one thing that I want to talk about is with Wilson out, it's going to come down to Jerick McKinnon and JaMychal Hasty. It has to be Hasty for me. He's cheaper. They're basically splitting snaps, but he's seeing more usage. I don't see a reason to pay up for McKinnon when you can go Hasty, especially since McKinnon's projected for higher ownership, which is also weird. And I can't say I'd be surprised if that changes come Sunday, but I'm also not going to be shocked if people just go with the name value of McKinnon. I do think that they're very similar players. So I would personally go Hasty. I think he's a really good tournament option. And then, we just kind of wait and see with Seattle's running backs.
Yeah, you guys crushed it. Seattle's super easy to stack. Like, you play Russ and one of Lockett or DK or both. I'm going to stick with DK this week. I'm going to double down. I was all in him on last week. Got burned by Lockett, but I'm going to go back to him this week. I'm assuming people will chase the 50-point game from Lockett, right? He does grade out a little bit better matchup-wise, like Sam noted, but I'll play the ownership game and just take the lower-owned one when they both have really high ceilings. And San Fran, love Ayuk. I'm willing to be overweight on Ayuk this week in all formats. A really good price point, especially on DraftKings where you get the full point PPR. I'll be curious to see if they kind of incorporate him into the run game like they did Debo, or just kind of getting him the ball as much as they can, even in the backfield. I'm going to see how they do that, but I think he's just a really good play with Debo out, and obviously in one of the best matchups. And I agree with Bales. Hasty, I think, is a really good tournament play. I actually think he's kind of good. I have him, or we've been talking about him in Discord for a couple weeks now. He got a little bit of an opportunity last week. McKinnon just looks like he's really struggling, having not played the last few seasons. So I do think Hasty is a pretty good tournament play. I think we hit that game really well. Either of you have anything else to add there?
Nope, good to go.
No.
All right. The next game we're going to talk about is the Bengals and Titans over under 53.5. I really like this game. This is one of my favorite games of the weekend. I love playing Tennessee because you know where the ball is going, and that's Derrick Henry and A.J. Brown. So it's a really concentrated touch share, and that's really good for tournaments because you don't really have to play the guessing game. And I have no issues attacking Cincinnati. I think that the Titans will obviously be able to put up points here. And on the opposite side, the Bengals are playing really fast on offense. Joe Burrow's first in the NFL in pass attempts right now. Their defense is so bad that he's going to be forced to throw the ball. And Tennessee's a really good team. So I think they will be probably trailing here, or it's going to shoot out again as Vegas expects. So I think this is a really fun game. Bales, I'll start with you. How are you attacking this game?
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely love this game. I wrote up both offenses in my stacks article. So a game stack here I think is really smart. Ryan Tannehill and Joe Burrow, both cash playable. Derrick Henry is probably my second favorite cash play on the slate, behind on the Keenan Allen, who's just, we talked about it before this. He's so mispriced, it's ridiculous. But I really like Derrick Henry in the matchup. On the other side, if Joe Mixon plays, I'm fine with him. If he's out, Gia Bernard is cash playable, in my opinion. Then A.J. Brown is the only other cash guy that I would consider. But even then, I doubt you're going to get there in cash. So more of a tournament option along with Jonnu Smith for Tennessee. Corey Davis, I hate to say it, but he's getting enough looks that you can really use him. He came back week 7. He saw 10 targets. I'm probably not going to end up there, but I do think at 5,100, it's fine. And then the order that I like Cincinnati is Tyler Boyd, number 1, just because, he's the target hog for him. AJ Green, 2. It's weird because he's dust, but he has 24 targets over the last 2 weeks, and he's going to see touchdown regression. It's just going to happen. He's like 3rd in the NFL in end zone targets, but has yet to score. It can't stay that way. And it just seems like everyone kind of loves to hate on AJ Green. He's 4,500. It's ridiculously cheap. That is cash playable, in my opinion. And then 3rd for me is T. Higgins. I do believe that you can play any of the 3. Like, I'm not going to try to talk you off of like Higgins over Green, or even really Higgins over Boyd. That's specifically in tournaments, just because Boyd has a significantly higher floor from his target share. But I really, really like this game. It's one of my favorite on the entire slate.
Sam?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just piggyback on what Bale said about Green. I mean, I've called him dust a lot. I call a lot of guys dust, but I mean, he literally is number one in you take fantasy points versus expected fantasy points. Like he is the literal, every relevant player. He's number one in positive regression. I mean, he hasn't scored a touchdown, but I think Bale's covered a lot of it really well. I mean, I would just add on. I mean, I like Jonnu Smith probably more than most people do normally and this week. I mean, he is fourth among tight ends in the slate in targets per route run. Since the Bengals give up the fourth most DK FanDuel points to tight ends on a weekly basis. I mean, Harrison Bryant just scored twice against them last week. And I mean, Jonnu Smith, I think he was hurt a little bit. And I think AJ Brown is definitely the alpha, but I think that in the red zone, I mean, he's got 8 red zone looks this year already. So I really like, and I agree with Bales that I might play 2 lineups and stack it both ways because I think there are so many viable options. And I think Tennessee, like Ben said, is a good team, but I think it's underrated how bad their defense is. It's really, they don't really stop mostly anyone. So I really like, I don't think the Bengals are going to win this game, but I would not be surprised at all. Other teams have, they keep it close. So I think this is a great game to game stack for sure. It definitely will be popular. I mean, my only thing is I would ask you guys, I mean, I think last week it was kind of popular to kind of go Burrow and then you stack with 2 of whoever. And then last week you ran it back with Odell, which burned you, or Kareem Hunt. Do you guys think that I assume that'll probably be one of the more popular stacks of the week is to play Burrow, Boyd, Green, or Burrow, Boyd, Higgins, and then run it back with AJ Brown or Derrick Henry. But I don't know if it's chalky enough where I'm going to get off of it, but I think it's interesting to think about in terms of leverage.
Yeah, I definitely think it won't be a secret after what Burrow did last week. People kind of have caught on to that. I agree, though. I think deciding between those Bengals receivers is going to make or break your week if the game pops off in terms of tournament placing. I like Higgins the most, I think. I just think he's the guy in the offense. I know, I have no problems playing. Like Bale said, I truly think you can play any of the 3, and Joe Burrow throws the ball enough that they all, it's not crazy that 2 of them have a good game. So I do think you could play all of them. I just like Higgins the most. I think he is the best right now, and I love Boyd, but I think Higgins is the guy, and I think Burrow obviously doesn't have any issues spreading it around. So I think he might be. I don't know. I think AJ Green might be the highest owned just because he's the cheapest. So Boyd and Higgins is an interesting decision. Agree with Henry being one of the best running back plays, and I love your call, Sam, on Jonnu Smith. I was going to talk about him. I think he's one of the best leverage plays on the slate. He was he got a lot of positive fantasy points with the touchdowns early in the year, and then that affected him the last couple weeks. But yeah, not only did Bryant score twice against Cincy last week, Njoku scored as well. So they gave up 3 touchdowns to tight ends. He certainly could get involved in the red zone and score a couple, score a touchdown or 2. So I think Jonnu Smith's a really good play, factoring in when he's a little bit cheaper than some of the other tight ends that you would spend up for. So yeah, I think it's a great game. The third game we're going to talk about, thank God Anthony's not on here. We're going to talk about the Browns and the Raiders. I think this is the first time we've talked about the Browns on this podcast this season, but 51.5 over under. I did note before we started this, I do think it's going to be kind of windy in Cleveland this week, and it's noteworthy because the total has dropped 4 points already. So that's something to watch out for as we head into the weekend. Sam, I'll go back to you for this one. I think some of the Browns cheap guys are interesting, and I think Kareem Hunt is one of the best plays on the slate, but I'm not sure who I really want to play on the Raiders outside of Waller. Jacobs, you're kind of dependent on him scoring touchdowns, and, if it's windy, Ruggs is a deep ball guy, so, I don't want to say he's a deep ball guy, but that's how they've kind of been using him, so, I don't know. I think it's a good game, but I don't really know who I like outside of Hunt and the cheap Browns.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I mean, it's tough. Yeah, Waller is the clear alpha. He's basically a wide receiver. And yeah, Cleveland gets dusted by tight ends. So I think he's the optimal play. I think the interesting thing, I'll have my article that comes out on Friday, like you mentioned earlier. I mean, I don't know how chalk like Derek Carr will end up getting. I did our early ownership today, and I had him around like 8 to 10%, which I don't know. I get I get the reasoning, and I get these really cheap, but I just do not trust Derek Carr very much. I just think he's so prone to turning the ball over. And, Cleveland's still, it sucks they lost Odell and everything, but like they still have a very strong defensive line. Oakland has literally zero. Their offensive line sucks. So I think my favorite plays are definitely, Kareem Hunt. And then I do like Jarvis Landry a lot. I think he'll end up chalk because he kind of has to be, but I think he has a good matchup. And I don't really know. I guess I'm just going to save the Higgins talk for Ben, but like they're kind of out of a lot of high quality options. And so I do like Jarvis a lot. I just don't know how much exposure I'd have to this in tournaments in terms of like a stack. I'd probably favor either Waller or Johnny in cash. And I like Hunt, obviously, like I think a ton of people will, but I don't know. I don't have really any interest in Baker either. I know he had a hell of a second half last week, but his range of outcomes is so high that I just hate playing a guy like that in cash. It's kind of similar to what Bales said about Garoppolo. It's like, yeah, he has these games with those 3 touchdowns and like Kittle goes off, but then he has these games where he literally scores like 1 point and can't do anything. So that's more how I line this game. But I think Hunt is an elite play. What could be the last week without Nick Chubb back there?
I think it's a really good game, but I think it's very dependent on the wind. Like Ben said, if it's absurdly windy, I'm probably going to back off. But just to outline here, I'm going to pretend it's not going to be. I'm fine with either quarterback. On the Raiders side, I have no issues with Josh Jacobs at 6,200, but he's so dependent on touchdowns that it's tough to love him. Darren Waller is a very clear guy. You guys already talked about it. And then Nelson Aguilar and Henry Ruggs are both high upside options. If you're stacking, I would probably go with one of them. Definitely not my favorite stack. I'm not really advocating too much for it. I do like Mayfield a lot. Las Vegas doesn't get a lot of pressure. Their secondary is pretty bad. We know that Baker can do it. And you saw last year with Kirk Cousins in the Stefanski offense that you just need to be really efficient and you need to get the touchdowns, which is it's been a big problem of year, and he has multiple touchdowns in all but 2 games. The only issue is just not throwing that much. So if Las Vegas can keep it relatively close, he could be throwing a bit more. Under no circumstances will I play Jarvis Landry. He's a volume PPR guy. We already know that about him. He doesn't have a ton of upside if he's only getting 3 catches in a game. And they don't throw the ball enough to support a volume-based receiver like that. In my opinion, anyway, I would just much rather pay down for Higgins, who comes with a lot more upside. He's going to get the ball deeper down the field. It's not just going to be like a maximum 8-yard catch unless Landry puts on some moves and breaks out for it. I will be going back to Harrison Bryant at 3,200. It's kind of weird to me that he doesn't seem like super chalky at this point. And it could change come Sunday. A lot of the times it does, especially when you have like a cheap tight end. But at 3,200, it's really hard for him to burn you. And if he's going to get 5 or so targets again against the Raiders, I have absolutely no problems paying that for him.
Yeah, I agree. I think Bryant's a really good play at his price. Obviously, he was really good in college, and he has produced. Even in his first game, he had a couple of catches this season. So I think that's a good play against the Raiders defense. Higgins, I think, is a great play for cheap. Him and Baker have a really strong connection. It started when they kind of got some practice when Baker was behind Tyrod Taylor his rookie year. 7 of Higgins' 9 career touchdowns have come from Baker Mayfield. So I think it's clear they have a connection, and he's really cheap. So I think that's a good play. Hunt, like you said, one of the best plays on the slate.
I gotta say, man, I gotta ask Bales. I'm curious on his hatred for Landry. I don't know. I just feel like the ball has to go. I agree they don't throw a ton. I don't know. I'm curious just based on not even agree just for me, just because if you look at his last 4 games, he's averaging like 6.5 targets. And I feel like with Odell out, maybe they just in a game like this they might not need it. Baker might throw the ball less than 20 times. I just feel like, especially on DraftKings, it just seems like the upside is not like a 3 touchdown, 200-yard game, but I feel like at his price, he could definitely pay off value and more of like in a safer lineup. But
but if you look at basically any game where he has a reasonable amount of catches, also we can solely take his last game against Cincinnati. Odell got hurt. What, 2 plays in? I think Odell played 2 plays.
Yeah.
He had 6 targets. He had 5 catches, and he had 48 yards, under 10 yards a catch. If you look at any of his reasonable, where he has 5 catches or more, he basically sits under 10 yards per catch. When he has 3 catches, all of a sudden it jumps. He could have like 15. I think the one game he had like 22 yards a catch. It's just, we know what Jarvis Landry is. He's not a deep threat. He's a guy that he bases his game off of volume. And I think he's a good player. I'm not saying that Jarvis Landry is a bad player or anything. I just don't think that Cleveland, the way they run their offense, there's just not the volume to get a guy like him because he doesn't have the upside of a 60-yard touchdown that other guys have. So I just don't see that much reason to play him.
That's fair. Yeah, I think it's something I think people, I think this is like almost a good thing for me because like I just get caught up, I think sometimes in matchup where it's like, the Raiders get torched in the slot, but I don't know. Do you think Landry kind of will stay in that role with Odell out, or do you think they'll move him because they don't have like an alpha number 1? Because I think that's a big factor as well.
I think Ben knows the Browns better than I do, but I'm assuming Higgins probably just moves to the Odell role.
Yeah,
they'll slide Higgins in for Odell. They still have Donovan Peoples-Jones, who caught obviously the winning touchdown last week. My concern with Landry is just that he's playing with like a broken rib or whatever it is, and you can just tell that he's hurt. But I don't think he's never missed a game, so like he's gonna be in and playing. But we will move to the last game. Bales, I'm gonna start with you on this one. Your Packers against the Vikings, 51 over under. Looks like Dalvin Cook will be back for the Vikings, which is good. And the injury news that we'll be watching here is whether or not Aaron Jones plays. That will be some big news as we head into the weekend again. Obviously, Jamal Williams isn't as cheap as he was last week, but still would be a good play should Jones miss. How are you attacking this game other than the full game stack?
Well, I love a game like this because you know where everything's going. Like, you legit know everything. Green Bay, you can use Aaron Rodgers. If Aaron Jones is out, Jamal Williams is going to be the workhorse back. And then Devontae Adams, that's what you're playing. Is Alan Lazard back this week? I believe he's practicing now.
Yeah,
he got activated.
Yeah, he got activated. So I haven't seen like confirmation that he would be playing, but I would assume that he'll at least be able to suit up.
Bales. Now I can't lose money on MVS every week. Great.
Well, I'm fine at 44. I'm fine with him. On the other side, 6,000's a pretty penny for Kirk Cousins, but I'm not necessarily opposed. Dalvin Cook's going to be the best option here. Green Bay allows a ton of receptions to the running backs. They really struggle against backs this year. And then you obviously have Adam Thielen, Justin Jefferson. I feel like I will basically always favor Adam Thielen. It might just be my undying love for the guy. But either one of them are 100% fine. At tight end, with everyone healthy for Green Bay, I'm not really going to go Bob Tonyan, Kyle Rudolph, and Irv Smith Jr. I'm not really interested in either one of those. So it's more or less Adams, Thielen, Jefferson, both running backs, and then you can either use Rodgers or Cousins, but full disclosure, I'm likely not going to go to Kirk Cousins this week.
Smart.
I actually think Cousins, I'm gonna go before you, Sam. I actually think Cousins is a pretty good play. Packers, the Packers are not good at getting pressure on opposing quarterbacks, which I think is big when it comes to Cousins, and I think that the Packers will be able to put points up like they have in pretty much every game, except for that Bucs game. And that will force the Vikings out of their just, run the ball over and over and over again, and will actually force them to put up points. So I do think Cousins is a pretty good play in tournaments. And I think one of the best leverage plays, I don't know if you were going to mention this, Sam, but I don't think anyone's going to play Dalvin Cook. And I think he has a really strong history against this Packers team. And anytime I can get running back with his upside in both the run and the pass game. Like anytime I get that low owned, I'm gonna take it. Like I don't think people are gonna play Hunt and Derrick Henry, Alvin Kamara. Like I really think Dalvin Cook's a really really good tournament play on Sunday.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, because it's funny. I mean, it's kind of like dependent on, and it kind of sucks because like I think if the Vikings were to somehow like just not, I mean, not somehow, but if they don't get down, I mean, the Packers' run D is not good. But the problem is like if they get down early, it's like Dalvin, he's not going to be uninvolved, but he won't get like, I don't think the insane volume. The only thing I wonder, and this is like such a probably a dumb narrative, like, is it supposed to? I thought it was supposed to be really cold in Green Bay. I kind of worry for Dalvin after coming off a soft tissue injury if he's going to go into the freezing cold. I was like. When I first saw this game, I was like, God, I hope it's not going to be freezing Green Bay or Dalvin's going to be dead again. But I don't know. My only thing I'll say is I think Thielen obviously is a stud, and he kind of got the best a little bit of Jair Alexander in the first game they played. But I don't know. I think Alexander's been such a stud the last like couple weeks. I think I'd much rather just play Jefferson and kind of stop it there on the Vikings, either play him and or Cook on the Vikings. I was going to ask you, I mean, is it finally faded? I mean, is Robert Tonyan now a leverage play again after that one explosive game, and then he's done nothing ever since? It's just like, I don't know. It's like, Adams gets like 30% of the targets, but like the other ones have to go somewhere if it's not Jamal Williams, or maybe they don't. But like, I'm just trying to think of a way to stack this game with Adams will be chalky, Rodgers will be owned, Jamal Williams will be owned. I mean, MBS, I mean, again, I like losing money with him weekly. I might as well keep it there, but I don't know. I'm just trying to think about another piece of this game that I like, and maybe it's Tanya.
Yeah, so
Vikings decent.
Kirk Cousins, Justin Jefferson,
Nope.
run it back with Adams. There's your stack. It's perfect.
Kirk Cousins is like not a good quarterback.
Kirk Cousins
And
has made his career.
You could say,
He's made his career.
Oh
man, I like Kirk Cousins this week. I think he's a good play. Bales be the deciding factor.
So the thing is with Kirk Cousins, which I will say, even besides like my bias against how bad he is and how unclutch he is, they also just don't throw the ball that much. Like we talk about Baker not throwing the ball, like Kirk Cousins averages like 32 dropbacks a game. Like, that's comically low. So it's kind of like.
I'll give that to Sam. He doesn't throw a ridiculous amount, but if you look at his last two games, he's thrown 36 and 39. If you're assuming Green Bay gets out ahead, which I mean, we know they're a significantly better team, but a lot of weird stuff happens in the division games.
Yeah.
You could see Kirk Cousins throw the ball 35 times, and if that's the case, he's 100% playable in my opinion at 6,000. I'm cool playing him. I have no issues with him. If you want to go there, I'm not going to talk you off of it. I'm just not prioritizing him, is what I meant.
23 DraftKings points on only 25 dropbacks versus the Packers.
You know how impressive his TD ratio is? 11 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. Damn, that's good.
Yeah, but who cares? You don't need to be a good quarterback to be good.
No, like four of those came against the Falcons, which is hilarious.
That's a fish stat. I just think that's incredible. That's really bad. Yeah, I mean, if you want to play Kirk Cousins, play me head to head. Like I don't know.
All right, I'm gonna play Sam. I'm gonna play Sam this week, and
let's do a pod 3-man. I'll play Myles Gaskin.
I have to play Cousins. You have to play Gaskin. Who does Bales have to play? Who does Bales stand more than anybody? Adam Thielen. Bales probably has to play Thielen.
Evan Singletary.
Oh, I'm forced into making a really good play.
That's perfect. You have to play Singletary. Sam will play Gaskin. I'll play Cousins. This is perfect.
Zach Moss is back. I'm just wasting money.
I'll
go Thielen if you guys want to do this. I'll lock in Thielen.
All right, we'll work out the details. We'll work out the details, but we're gonna
you guys know.
we'll post this for sure. But we're going to head to the positional talk now. We're going to talk quarterbacks first. So as far as my cash pool, so we'll name cash pool and then we'll do tournaments. So for cash, for me, I think it's Burrow. I think it's Burrow and really Burrow only, but I wouldn't be opposed to getting up to Russ if you have the money. But if I'm playing someone in the mid tier or cheaper, I'm just going to play Burrow, Sam.
Yeah, I agree. Bale said it earlier. I wouldn't mind Tannehill in cash if I have extra 600, but for me, it's probably Burrow, Tannehill, and yeah, if I can get up to Russ, but that seems a tough one.
Yep. Russell Wilson, Ryan Tannehill, Joe Burrow. That's my pool as well.
All right, for tournaments,
Easy.
I do agree. I like Tannehill in tournaments, and I really like Justin Herbert. I don't think anyone will play him again after a monster game last week. I posted in Discord earlier today. Herbert is nearing like play him every week territory, so I'm definitely gonna have a Herbert stack. Sam, who do you like in tournaments?
I like just because of the ownership. I get it's a bad matchup, but Lamar Jackson is now not going to be owned by anybody, and we know his upside even against. I mean, this matchup sucks, but I think he's a really interesting play. He hasn't been the freak that he was last year, but he's not playing poorly, so I think Lamar Jackson's a great leverage. And Herbert.
Yeah, I think Herbert's quickly becoming my favorite, but I'll add in Baker Mayfield or Aaron Rodgers. I'm cool with both of them, and neither's projecting for a ton of ownership.
Mm-hmm.
All right, running backs, cash pool for me. I think Henry, Kareem Hunt, Alvin Kamara. Although it does look like Thomas, he was back at practice today, so he might end up playing, which could be interesting. And then I would throw Jamal Williams if Aaron Jones is out as well into my cash pool.
I mean, Miles Gas.
Yeah, I knew. I'm just gonna say, just say it. Just say it already.
I will say, I probably will not play him in cash just because, like, I do think he's too cheap, and I like him in tournaments a lot. But like, I just don't think you really need to go there with all like the options. So as much as I want to play him in cash, I think the ones you know. I mean, yeah, Kamara is an interesting one. I will say. I mean, would you guys X him out of cash if Michael Thomas plays, or just think he's not as good of a play? I don't know.
Yeah.
I wouldn't X him out. I would drop him.
Henry's like $200 less.
Yeah, if Thomas plays, then I think you have to have Henry above him just because the matchup isn't that great. But if Thomas was out, if Thomas is out, then it's pretty even. I think more people would play Kamara on DraftKings because they know that he catches the ball a lot, honestly.
Yep.
Same. I'll also add Giovanni Bernard if Joe Mixon misses again. I'm fine with him in cash.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, tournaments. I'll start with you, Bales, for tournaments. Who do you like at running back?
I really like Jonathan Taylor. The matchup's great. He hasn't looked totally cooked in recent weeks. And if Indy gets out ahead, they're probably going to just use him quite a bit to run the ball. And JaMychal Hasty, man, I'm honestly really hoping that for some reason people go McKinnon because I want Hasty to be as low as possible.
Yeah, Sam?
The only other one I'll add, it's frustrating because I hate Sean McVay, but I'll add Darrell Henderson. I really do think he's the lead back. And Miami, quietly, their pass D or outside corners are like really not that bad. Like their run D sucks. But I think, honestly, and with how bad Goff's in the road, I think Darrell Henderson can be a great leverage play. But that split, I don't know, Malcolm Brown's kind of going to leach touchdowns, but I like Henderson a lot.
Yeah, I literally had 3 guys written down. Bales took 2 of them with Hasty and Jonathan Taylor. And then I talked about him in the Minnesota game, but I do think Dalvin Cook is a good tournament play as well. Sam, I'll start with you at receiver, and then we'll go to Bales. Tournament wide receivers, who do you like?
I guess he could be cash earners. I said it pre-pod to you guys. I think Keenan Allen's like one of the most mispriced players in the slate. I like him a lot. I like Cooper Kupp. And then to pair with what I said about Lamar, I like Marquise Brown because there is going to be a ceiling game coming. I don't know what it is, but I don't know. Pittsburgh kind of gives up a lot of deep plays if over the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, I really like Cooper Kupp in the slot. Miami is really bad against the slot. And LA is a team that can really take advantage of that. For tournaments, I mean, the 3 guys from Cincinnati, none of them are projecting for a ton of ownership. So you can get any of those 3. And then I'll add, assuming he plays, Jamison Crowder. He's still ridiculously cheap, but when he plays, he's scoring like some of the most fantasy points of anyone in the NFL at receiver. He's averaging like over 20 fantasy points a game or something. And New York, I don't see a reason New York doesn't just give him 20 targets again. Like it's ridiculous. And they're all relatively short, so he's catching a ton, which makes him an elite play on DraftKings specifically.
Yeah, cash games, I feel like the pool is pretty like close as of right now. Like you have Adams at the top, who I think people definitely will want to play after what he did last week. I think Lockett could pick up ownership, even though I probably won't play him. And then you have Ayuk, and then like Higgins or like AJ Green, like one of those cheaper guys that I think you could throw in there. And then for tournaments, I mean, I like AJ Brown if you're going to use Tannehill. I like Justin Jefferson if you're going to use Cousins or just in general. And then one interesting spot I think is Tyreek Hill. Like we've gone a whole podcast and haven't talked about the Chiefs really at all. So I think just like Tyreek Hill's still under 7K on DraftKings. I do think he can always be used in tournaments at that price. Tight
Wait,
ends.
Ben, I had to add one. I can't even say it. T.Y. Hilton, have you seen his snap count go up by a week? 4,900
Yeah.
tournament play. He'll dust me with a 0.
I mean, I can't play T.Y. Hilton and AJ Green on the same slate. I feel like I think I gotta choose
I
between.
can't play T.Y. Hilton over
No,
AJ Green
I mean,
right now.
yeah, but I wouldn't be
That's
shocked if
fair.
T.Y.
I mean,
had a big game. I wouldn't be
don't know,
shocked.
man. He might be dust though.
Might.
Bales, I'll start with you at tight end.
Cash, you're probably playing Darren Waller. If you want to go down, Trey Burton's only 3,500. Harrison Bryant's 3,200. That's probably where I drop to in tournaments. Everyone already knows that we like Jonnu Smith. I think Hunter Henry's pretty fine. That might more or less just be my pool, honestly. I don't think there's too many guys outside of like, you can always play like Mark Andrews or Mike Gesicki. I don't think there's too many guys that I'm going to be targeting this week.
Yeah, Sam.
Yeah, the only other guy I'd add Noah Fant. Locke kind of throws him a lot, and the Chargers don't cover tight ends incredibly well, I don't believe, for like DVOA. I mean, Fant when he's healthy is like pretty good. He's not like by any means the best, but he's pretty involved in the offense. And with Sutton out and the Broncos suck and they should be trailing, I expect Fant to get a decent amount of targets.
Speaking of Fant, give me Alberto over Fant in DFS this weekend, I think.
Oh, I was just going to say that.
Yeah, give it to me. I mean, dude, Locke was throwing to him last week. They played together in college. I know some people really like that narrative, but I think that actually, like, he was actually looking for him actively last week, so I think that's interesting. But yeah, I think for cash, you play Waller or Bryant, or I think Burton might get some ownership as well. People forget he had that 2-touchdown game the last time we saw him on the main slate, so I think he might get some ownership. But
is Olali going to be back?
Yeah, I don't know for sure if he is. I'm assuming he is out. I think
he returned to practice. He was limited at practice.
So if he's back, I mean, I'm playing Bryant over Burton anyways. If he's back, that would kind of just solidify for that for me. And Burton also ran so pure because he scored a rushing touchdown, and then he scored when he scored his second touchdown, it was the play after T.Y. Hilton got a touchdown called back. So like he just ran so good. So I have no problems playing Bryant over Burton tournaments. Yeah, Jonnu, which we talked about, which I think is a great play, and then Kittle or Kelsey, spending up, I think are great plays as well. But that about does it. Sam, I'm gonna get a bold call from each of you before we head off of this podcast. So Sam, you go first.
Myles Gaskin scores a touchdown.
So
he deserves
such
it.
an obvious bold call. Bales.
If you're gonna basically stick to the same, you gotta just tout your same player. He's gonna be my
dude. You stick by him. I mean, you're loyal. I will give you that.
I'll go. Cooper Kupp goes for 8 catches, over 100 yards and a touchdown.
Wow, I like that.
Nice.
That would be good.
8 catches is ridiculous. I'm going to drop it down to 7 catches.
That's like that's like historic. But all right, I'll go with Dalvin Cook, 102. That's not super bold, but I mean it's bold.
No,
but it's not like
that seems pretty normal, my man.
I'm feeling the Dalvin Cook game this week. I wish I could like YOLO him in cash, but there's just no way to do it. But all right, thank you guys for watching. Like I said, be sure to give us a thumbs up if you're watching this on YouTube, and you can head over to dfskarma.com/shop, pick up a package, get access to Discord, and bother all 3 of us all day long. Bales and I will see you on the Pivot podcast, which will drop on Friday, and Sam and I will see you on the Sunday morning stream at 11. So thank you guys for watching, and good luck.